I've been collecting for about 15 years, have a lot of fun doing it. I own many other things, but I really got turned on by Rembrandt, and the one I really liked, the first one I ever got, was him sitting on the bench, looking out, growling at the world. And that's pretty much what he was doing. I'll just put these up and we'll talk about them as we go. But Rembrandt, 1606, he lived in a time, it was kind of like after the Second World War. Holland had just kicked Spain out. The Catholics were gone, the Calvinists were in. It was kind of euphoria. And there was also a tulip bust, where the tulip business at one point in time was, tulip was worth more than gold, and then that went down, and the wool trade went down, and 80,000 people ventured into Amsterdam, and most of them were beggars. In Rembrandt's day, he was kind of like a pessimistic Christian. He was okay with it, but he liked to treat everybody the same. The Calvinists like to treat everybody the same, only if you did what they told you to. If you were poor and in the street, they wanted to get rid of you and push you away. But if you went to one of their poor houses, their alms houses, one of their factories, they would clothe you, feed you, get you set up, and then get you on your way. Kind of reminiscent of what's happening now. So, people, most everybody that I have in the Beggar series has a cane. They're always walking. They have a staff, whether for protection or this is Rembrandt's way of just showing you that they're just traveling through. They're not staying long. They're not partaking of anything. And these are the people that the Calvinists want to move on. Rembrandt was, he was cheap. He was indignant. He was very, very talented. He had an ego. He was a rock star of Holland. He was at that time, he was there, he came, he was 20 years old, he was doing portrait after portrait, made 50 portraits in 2 years, but his real money was made by his etchings. People couldn't believe what he could do with a needle and a piece of copper. And personally, if you look at these, they're just amazing. The shading of them, the looks into people's faces. You can see them a little bit better now since they're so big. But every time you look at these, something else strikes me or strikes you, and everybody has a different opinion of it. Me, I can see color in those. I can see just like the gentleman from Zimbabwe, like this gentleman here with no leg. Does he have a leg or not? Rembrandt did that 350 years ago, and it still works today. And I can this gentleman is really good at what he does. Okay, I'm getting way off the track here. Okay, the Rembrandt made etchings. Do you want me to explain etchings really fast? How it's done? Yes. Okay, the copper was the copper that he got was from books that were done in his era. So he would take the copper from the engraving, pound out the copper, and make it flat, and then take a ground, it's called a dark ground of wax, put that on top of the copper, and the copper is about 1/8 of an inch thick and about 8 by 10 at the most. And he would take a needle and he would etch into the wax. Then he would take that, once he got what he wanted, and he's got to figure out because it's reverse, right? Got what he wanted, he would bathe it in acid for any length of time, short time, long time, and that would bite the copper as deep as he wants it to go. Then he would take it out of the acid, wipe off the ground, and ink it, make sure the ink gets everywhere, put it in a press, or one of those old paper presses that you roll, and roll it out, put a piece of damp, wet paper on it. It's usually rag paper, although sometimes it was Japan paper or even vellum. And he would press that in, pull it off, and see what he got. Long process, but when you looked at it, he said, well, I don't really like this. Let me try something else. So he'd take piece of copper, put a white ground on it so that he could see through it, and then play with it a little bit more. Maybe add some shading, add some trees, add some more scraggly beard, whatever he wanted to add, and then run that through the press again. You know, take the wax off, put the ink on, paper, run it through the press, and then say, oh, I like that. So the first one that he did was the first state. The second one he did is the second state. And he could do this up to 9 or 10 times, or however many times he wanted to do it. I think 10 is his limit on some of these. Some people like to collect the first state because they think that's the state that's the best. I personally think any state that you like is the best, but what he would do, each state would be something different. So he didn't get what he wanted on the first state or the second state, the third state. So to me, it doesn't matter what state you have because they're all good. Right? He also did the states because he was a businessman. In the beginning, he was an okay businessman, and people would collect Rembrandts. And the more states you had, the more. It was like baseball cards. You kept collecting. Do you have the fifth state? Do you have the fourth state? Do you have this state? This state has a dog in it. You didn't get the one with the dog in it? So he would kind of, he was a character. He was a pretty good character. I'm not going to be talking about, oh, sorry. Let me read you something from 1688. And this is Filippo Baldinucci. And he said, what was really outstanding about Rembrandt was a very curious way he invented etching in copper. It was wholly his own and never used again by others, nor again seen, with certain strokes and irregular stretches, without outlines, fully highlighting a deep chiaroscuro, that's the shading, of great vigor. Let the truth be known, in the art of etching, Rembrandt was much more praised by the professors of art than for his paintings, where it appears he was more fortunate than excellent. His paintings, all through his life, he did really good in the beginning. Okay, when he was young, he did many rich person's paintings, but you can only do one, right? So what he would give, like Jan 6, he would do a painting of him, then do an etching of him, and then hopefully Jan 6 would give out these etchings as gifts. So he'd have to buy 20, 30, everybody that came to his house. He was so good, he talked so good that he lived in a house for 15 years, never paid for it. The person that came to auction off his stuff, he did a etching for, and he didn't have to pay him. He was really good. And he had, the person that he owed the money to paid the taxes so he could stay in the house. He was a conniver. He also, as Rembrandt said, I think things should be guided only by nature and no other rules. I surround my art with living, thinking people, and I invite the viewer to converse with them, to share their joys and sorrows as well. He had, let's just talk, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but this is one of maybe 20 or 30 in the world. This is number 166. Barsh, the reason we know so much about Rembrandt is he went bankrupt towards the end of his life, and they auctioned off everything. There are 81 plates still in existence. They were in North Carolina as of the middle 90s, and then they were sold, and they're dispersed. I don't know where they are. Private, who knows where they went to. But when he was bankrupt, they sold everything off, and that's how they knew how many etchings he has done. He did 295 to 300 etchings. There's about 1,200 pencil drawings and approximately 400 paintings, which are constantly in flux because everybody says they have a Rembrandt, but it's not a Rembrandt. The reason on his paintings that they're so hard to figure out is he had many students. He had anywhere from 10 to 15 students a year, and they would work on something, but they were not allowed to sign their name until they became an artist. If he liked it, he did a little something to it, he put his name on it, and he sold it.